Hi, my name's Mona. Thank you, Sally, for asking me. I've led this meeting before, but it's still so intimidating, and I feel really nervous. I just have to say that. So what brought me to Alanon? When I first came to Alanon, I wasn't really quite sure why I was here. Several therapists actually suggested it. I did grow up surrounded by a lot of drinking in my home and my extended family, a lot of drinking. But I never saw alcohol as a problem. I think because my mom and my stepfather both drank, so there was no Alanon parent in the home blaming it on the alcohol. They told us they weren't alcoholics. So they said, your grandparents are alcoholics, but we're not because we just drink beer. So you can't be an alcoholic if you just drink beer. And it just never occurred to me that alcohol was a problem. When I came to Alanon because my second marriage was disintegrating, imploding, I actually went to see 3 therapists in 2 days because I was so desperate to get some help that I would go to whoever could get me in earlier, but then I kept the other appointments, and they all suggested Alanon. And but I came and I these ladies. I went to this women's meeting and they were all talking about being controlling, and I thought I'm the one that's being controlled in this relationship. I don't know what you guys are talking about. I'm being controlled. But, and I didn't, and then I kind of didn't go back for a little while, and then, just something still wasn't quite right, so I came back. And it wasn't until a couple of years into this program, somebody asked me if I thought my ex-husband was an alcoholic. And I had never thought about it before. And I said, well, he was going to AA when I met him. But not because he didn't identify as an alcoholic. He was going to AA because he was court-ordered to go to AA. But not because he didn't have a DUI or anything. He was court-ordered to go to AA as part of a plea bargain to get a domestic violence charge dropped down to disturbing the peace. That's not a red flag. But because I am affected by the family disease of alcoholism, I have some screwed up ways of thinking, some screwed up ideas about how things should work. And so what I thought in that situation was, he said, she's crazy, she's lying about that. And I thought, yeah, of course, I'm cool. I'm gonna be the cool chick. I'm gonna show you how much better I am than anybody else. And I remember I used to really take a lot of comfort in that relationship. If I ever felt threatened or insecure in that relationship, I would really take comfort in telling myself that he's never gonna find anybody else that can tolerate what I can tolerate. And that was sort of, that was the way that I lived. And I started coming to Alanon, and especially when I came to this meeting, because I was in Alanon for about a year before I ever came to an adult-child-focused meeting. And I came to this room, and I heard shares in this room that rocked my world. I was like, that is my story. Every single person in here was telling my story, and I'd never heard anybody talk about childhood chaos and dysfunction like I heard in these rooms. Out there, whenever I tried to talk about it, people would be like, oh, they would get really weirded out by it. And I was alternatingly sort of ashamed of the way that I grew up, and also I wanted a badge for it, and I would brag about it. Look what I've been through. Look what I can survive. And that has all kind of gotten right-sized through working the Alanon program. And so I approached sitting up here very differently. The first time I ever sat up here, I really wanted to tell you guys how fucked up it was. And really, I want you to know that I have suffered and what I've been through. And I don't really need that anymore. I mean, just for the sake of identification, I can tell you there was a lot of chaos. It was like sex, drugs, and rock and roll until my mom met my stepfather. And then they were very like isolated, kind of cut off from the rest of my family. They didn't really have any friends. They didn't work. We were very poor. They just basically sat at home and drank until my mom died of liver failure at 46 years old. It was a lot of drinking. But again, I didn't know what that was, and I really didn't know that it affected me. I came out of it. My brother and I used to say all the time, like it's amazing that we're so normal. Like we really weren't affected, and we would be like, yeah, it's really cool that we're like, because really we should have been a lot more fucked up than we were, and my little brother and sister, my youngest brother and sister kind of got the worst of it and were much more affected on the outside than we were, but we were all affected. So I got a sponsor in this program, and I asked a woman who I heard share about how much her relationship with her mother had changed. Even though my mom has been gone for 22 years, I desperately wanted that relationship to change. I wanted to find some forgiveness, some acceptance. For years, even years in this program, I wanted my mom to be different than what she was. Like, I really thought one day I'm going to wake up and I'm going to realize she really loved me. She really was there for me. That was all, I just misremembered. And so this woman shared that her relationship with her mom had changed, even though her mom hadn't changed. And I thought, I want that. And so I asked her to sponsor me. We started working the 12 steps, and I don't understand the 12 steps. I don't understand why answering these questions in this book changes my life, but it does. So I just keep doing it. And it really has changed my life. It has really changed me profoundly. And for many years, I waited for that change in my relationship to my mom. Without it happening. But what I did get was a huge change in the relationship with my dad, who's still alive. And I never expected that. And I didn't even really care about that. Like, I just thought my dad's an asshole, and, nothing's going to change there. I didn't grow up with my dad, and I had so much resentment that he didn't take us out of that home, and that he didn't do more for us, that he didn't save us. And through working this program, a miracle happened where I forgave my dad, and I learned to accept my dad for who he is and the limitations that he has. There's this saying in this program that we don't go to the hardware store for milk, and I don't anymore. I don't go to my dad looking for him to hear me or see me or validate me. But what I realized is that I can appreciate that the hardware store has 50 different kinds of nails. And I don't need any nails, but wow, that's a lot of different kinds of nails, and I can have a conversation with my dad, and I can be like, okay, this is the person that he is, and that's interesting, he's not a bad guy, he just doesn't have any milk to give me. And I come to this room and I get that milk, and I get the love and the acceptance, and I am seen and I'm heard, which is terrifying to me. Sitting up here, I'm so in touch with young Mona, who wanted desperately to be seen, wants attention so much, and yet I am so afraid that if I call any attention to myself, I will be punished. That's my childhood thing. And I think that you guys will like chase me out of here with sticks the minute I step off of here. And I just get to walk through that. I get to feel those feelings, acknowledge that that's coming from a very real place. But that's not the reality today. That's probably not going to happen today. And that I get to heal. You know, I get to heal from that. Did the timer go off?
Oh, you're 1 second.
All right. Thank you for listening. Hi, I'm Mona.
Hi, Mona.
I don't remember ever reading that one before. There's a lot in there. But this sentence, I wanted to save her, but I was powerless. Like, sums it all up. I couldn't save my mom, and I was absolutely obsessed for basically my entire 20s with saving my youngest brother and sister. When I lived at home, they were my kids. You know, I was primarily parenting them, and I left at 17 just for like self-preservation, and I was so torn up that I left them behind, and I was obsessed. I was obsessed with how am I going to get them out of that house and how am I going to save them. And when my little brother ran away from home at 15, and I was 22 or whatever, he came to live with me, and I was going to right all the wrongs. I was going to make him go to school. Nobody made me go to school. Nobody cared. You know, I went and I talked to all his teachers, and we're going to have some discipline, and I'm going to get him back on the right track. And it didn't work, and he ended up moving back home. They told him they'd buy him a leather jacket, and he wouldn't have a curfew if he came back home. So he came back home. And I was devastated. I was absolutely devastated, and I fell apart. And this was way long time before Alanon. And I can tell you now, he went on to become a high school dropout and a teenage parent. My little sister then went on to become a high school dropout and a teenage parent, was homeless for a while, and I couldn't save them. And, now I can tell you, 20-something years later, they're fine. And I had nothing to do with it. My little sister just got her teaching credential. And they both have families and are like productive members of society, and I had nothing to do with it. And, it's just, I got so much out of, in my Alanon disease, I got so much out of feeling like I am your higher power and I'm going to save you. And that was like my purpose in life. If I wasn't doing that, why was I even here? And I'm constantly given lessons of like, I'm not God, and they got it together, and I didn't do it. And there's so much more in there that I wanted to share about, but boy, that time goes by really fast. So I'll just say that I'm really grateful for all the lessons that I've gotten here, and I'd love to talk more. So if you want to talk more, I'm on the phone list. We'll talk more. Thanks.